My gosh, what day is today? Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. It's very hard to slide the music down while I'm talking, but we tried. Thank you for joining us. We are streaming live today on our website, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on all these different places. We're always trying something new. And excited to talk to all of you today about NFTs. We published this episode and then I noticed more than usual, just like a ton of people commenting about, oh, this is a good topic. Can I get the recording? I'm excited to be there. So we're excited to hear from all of you what is so exciting about NFTs. But anyway, my name is Liz Caruso. Get to be here every week with the fabulous Dalia El-Ghazar, who is trying to find her way home from PCMA and is unable to join us today.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bruno, Michelle, I think you are also still trying to find your way home.
I'm halfway home.
You're getting there. I
Yeah.
always am like jealous when I see that you guys are all at these amazing events. And I'm always thinking like, oh my God, I wish I could be there. And then I hear about travel woes and I'm like, no, I'm pretty good.
No, it's getting so old. I'm just gonna say so old.
I
The
mean, I feel like with the FAA yesterday, pretty much everyone was impacted, which is never great for the end of a conference.
Yeah, and it was all anyone could talk about because then they're like, oh no, now what? And it was a whole day of like waiting to figure out what's gonna happen to us. So it was just
It's the
awful.
worst.
It's
That is
still
the worst.
anyway, I'm here.
Well, I'm glad you were able to join us because I definitely don't think I could carry a conversation on NFTs all by myself. And I see Michelle is here. So I want to say good morning to her and to anyone else who's watching us live. Thank you for joining us. Please do comment. We want to hear what you want to know about. We want to hear what you know about that we don't know about. We bring up these topics every week, not because we are the experts for sure, but they're things that we're thinking about, things that the industry is talking about, and things we think you should be at least aware of and thinking about. And we did bring in a special lifeline today. I'm going to introduce him as well. We have my husband, Craig Caruso, here. Hi, Craig.
Good morning.
We're
Morning.
not in the same location. He's at work. I'm at home. But he introduced me to NFTs. I mean, at this point, well over a year ago. I don't even know how long. He's the true techie. And this is always the conversation people don't really know. He's the one who like knows all about technology, downloads everything, tries everything first. And then he's like my little filter. He kind of tells me, hey, look at this thing over there. And then I watch it for a while. I'm a watcher way more than I am a downloader user. I kind of like to filter it through my brain first. But I see Sean is here. Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Peggy. Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So who wants to talk about what the hell NFTs are and what we're talking about in the events industry in particular? You want to try,
I'd
Craig?
love to, throw it to Craig, our lifeline.
So NFTs, for people who don't know, really started gaining traction during COVID. Everyone was home. No one really knew what to do with themselves. So a lot of it started like the card collecting game. Like people was like, oh, well, I'm home for 2 years. Let me go through all my baseball cards and say, what can I sell? What can I do? And then, COVID kind of really put a lot of people in perspective of what they want to do with their lives and say, hey, well, I can make art and I can make it as a digital token. And so, and if you're just to go back, NFT stands for non-fungible tokens. So basically could be like, in the event space, a virtual ticket, but it sits in a crypto per se wallet. So to buy an NFT now, with Web3 being so huge, you're supposed to kind of use crypto or Ethereum to buy your NFT, which is not necessarily true because now the Web2 space you don't want to leave. So people are still using like PayPal or Cash or Venmo or Zelle to buy your NFT. And then it goes ahead and sits in a wallet that's, let's say it's a software wallet. So it sits in your browser. So there's a browser extension called MetaMask, and you're giving a 12-word private key that you can never lose, and also a regular password, and they will sit in your wallet in your per se browser. Or there are like something called a ledger, which is my hardware wallet, which I don't have my keys on me. I have a hardware wallet. Basically, if I ever lose that, that's where all my cryptos and my NFTs
There goes
currently
all
sit.
our retirement savings.
But if I ever lose that, I still have that 12 password as backup. So during COVID, Gary Vee kind of said, "Oh, I'm going to create NFTs." You know, it took him almost 2 years to do it because it didn't happen until the tail end of COVID. And then basically, he's using that for experiences.
Yeah, I think NFTs have mostly been in the news for things like artwork and buying like a digital piece of art, and then you use your Ethereum or whatever to buy it, and then you own it. And I know when I first heard about that, I was like, that is BS. That's just a JPEG. Anybody can just download that JPEG and they're making money off of this. Like, what prevents you from screenshotting it and sending it out to a billion people? Didn't make a lot of sense to me. However, I think NFTs are super interesting for the event space if you think a little bit differently about them. Michelle, you did buy like NFTs related to events, right?
Yeah, so I'm not an NFT collector, but I inadvertently had to purchase, not had to, I purchased two. One was for an online course about the metaverse. So I think it was important that they, educated the audience, the students about what it was that they were advocating. And now to this day, I can still access that course with my NFT credentials. The other instance was also related to an event. It wasn't required to access the event, but it was Joe Polizzi, by the way, did an event last May, and he created a never-ending ticket. So by purchasing this NFT, which is also a never-ending ticket, I am able to go to his event forever, as long as I live, and as long as the event is there. But with his track record, I was willing to take a chance.
Sure.
And also, I can sell my NFT. It actually has value because it's on the blockchain. And at the time, purchasing the NFT, the cost of that was the equivalent of, I think, one Ethereum coin or whatever unit. Since then, the value of that Ethereum unit has plummeted significantly, but that's not why I did it. And that wasn't required to attend the event. Like I said, you could just register, show up, and stuff like that. But I wanted access to him. And as a holder of that never-ending ticket, I have access to exclusive content and meetups and people that also are never-ending ticket holders whenever I go to his events. Right now, we've had one monthly meetup on, we have it on Discord. I don't remember. Anyway, no, it was on Zoom. We have a Discord channel. So there's all of this stuff. It was tremendous value to me because it's him, because it's his content, because he was experimenting. I wanted to be in on that. It was worth, I think at the time I paid a little under around $1,200, which, and I had already paid to go to the event, also the $500 or $600 or $800. So it was kind of, it was a big ask. But then I looked at other NET, never ending ticket holders, and the benefit package, and I thought it was worth it. So the fact that it was an NFT based thing, and it's recorded on the blockchain, and I can hold it forever, I can sell it, was not really the attraction. It was the benefits associated with me having that. And that's where I think the value will lie for events going forward. So
I think it's very smart for an event to do as the ticket, like you're talking about, or we've talked on the podcast a lot about this idea of community building. And so I've seen brands, and I think Gary Vaynerchuk is similar to this, where you can kind of buy into the community at different levels, get different levels of access based on the NFT that you buy. Craig, you helped a group build something like this, right?
Yeah.
You're living in my house and I'm like, I don't know, it's something like that.
Yeah. So I'm in a baseball card group. Kind of got in it during COVID because I have so much baseball cards I just want to get rid of. But they basically said, hey, we want to do an exclusive Discord that you can only get into the Discord with having an NFT. So we built this whole Discord out revolving around the NFT. So you buy the NFT, you get access to the Discord. Discord is, you could make levels in Discord. A lot of people, but there are certain channels or groups inside Discord that you couldn't access without the NFT, like perks to group grading and perks to sell and a bunch of other perks that you needed this NFT to get in. And if you had 2 or more, you got more access. If you had 3 or more, you got more access. So you had first dibs to buy product. So I worked with a company called Mason to build something like this out. And there was really no upfront costs minus minting the contract. But going back to Gary Vaynerchuk's point, Gary, so he has Series 1, Series 2, he's thinking about Series 3. Series 2, he just basically evolved Series 1 into multiple characters and multiple variations, like 1 of 1s, 1 of 5, 1 out of 5. Series 1, it was a Dutch auction. So it was a high price, and then it kept lowering, and whoever would bid for it. So certain perks were like, 30-minute call with Gary Vaynerchuk over a year. But there was something called, one of the biggest ones was Gift Goat. So Gift Goat is over 3 years, you get 4 gifts a year from Gary over 3 years. So it was like 12 gifts. I think the second or third gift just happened, and it was play hoops with Gary Vaynerchuk and Shaq. Like, you have to fly to Miami, but who doesn't want to play hoops with Shaq and Gary Vaynerchuk? So, but that's like, it's a $30,000 NFT. Like,
I
yes, you
guess
get to
you're
hang
buying
out with
that,
Gary.
then you can afford the flight.
Right. But then on the flip side, more about NFTs and more about what Gary's doing. Gary partnered with a former Texi Talk speaker. We know him as Josh, but Chef Capon. So they are Gary and Chef are coordinating. There's another chef involved. They are building a New York. Now this is all from NFT
so
sales.
Cool.
They are building a New York City restaurant called Amasaki, I believe it is. You could only eat at the restaurant if you have this NFT. And I think the NFT covers you and one person, but it does not include the food. So it's an upscale, I believe it was a sushi restaurant, but it's you and 2 guests. You have to have the NFT. And then there was another version of it that the food is included. But they're using all the funds from the NFTs and the price of Ethereum at that time, because Ethereum and Bitcoin and crypto has gone down unless they cashed out early, to fund this restaurant. And this is Chef Capon's next venture, to have a restaurant revolving around an NFT. So there are multiple use cases for NFTs. Basically, you just have to find your niche for it, your niche for it, and how you can execute on it. Now, the thing is, crypto is down, so NFTs are a little cheaper. You could buy a Series 2 Gary Vaynerchuk for a couple $100 now. Not really it's not as lucrative as it was. So, but the overall market, let's not get into politics, the overall market is down, inflation is up. So, but once everything starts ramping back up again, it might be a couple years, you can say, I have this NFT I've been sitting on for 5 years. Now I'm going to go ahead and sell it.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in some of our geniuses who are watching, because I think one of the big things I know I was dealing with, because we were looking at doing this for Texi Talk in November, I was thinking about these things, and I think it makes perfect sense to use it for like levels of exclusivity and to get people. I see the tie, but one of my biggest things was like, who the hell even knows how to buy it? How do you know how to set it up? I think it's just, there's not enough people who get it to make it
a big learning curve right now, but I built your NFT that I own in my wallet in less than 8 minutes.
Yeah, which I don't
need. Right, but I know you want to get to the experts, but like a year ago, 6 months to a year ago, it was.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten cheaper.
OpenSea, who is the overall company right now that has NFTs for sale. It's like the eBay of NFTs. They were charging you to basically mint. So that's when you buy a token, it's not really calling buy, it's calling minting it. So creating a token is called minting. They were charging to mint. But what now is I went to that website, I linked my wallet, and I said create a NFT. I put your logo up, I put my wallet address, and within minutes it was created.
Yeah. So Michelle, sorry, I just want to read this. She said that she's been following NFTs for about a year and a half. And I'm curious, Michelle, what you think, how you think it's going to impact the industry. She wants to know how we can better communicate the difference of the NFT ticket versus VIP, or is it the same? I would argue it's kind of the same. But Sean chimed in and he said, good question. I almost think having NFTs as an option for event attendees is giving them that VIP access. I would argue even with the VIP price tag, like you attach the money to it as well. He said he knows there are a lot of talk and experientials on NFTs in private clubs, membership spaces, which is what we're talking about. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, so Craig, you can chime in. There are some distinctions between just saying like, here's a JPEG and now I have exclusive access to something.
Yeah.
It is tied to the blockchain. So there is an immutable record that you are in fact the sole owner of this NFT. So that is something that is very different from other, just tickets, digital tickets.
So
the second thing,
NFTs live forever. As long as you're alive, they live forever.
Yeah.
Lose Michelle.
Right. And right. And the other thing is that they have intrinsic value.
Oh, hotel Wi-Fi is failing.
Yeah. So I'll pick up when Michelle went off. As Liz knows, and rep to the Jets, I am a New York Jets season ticket holder. And they rolled out NFTs this year. And it was, you go to these, I think it was 3 games, Liz. I think it was 3 games. You go to these 3 games, you scan your ticket. And within an hour, I had an NFT of the game that I went to. Now, I will never, ever sell those. Unfortunately, they don't live in MetaMask. They live in another wallet that the NFL uses. There's a lot of stuff with that. But
everyone's going to have their own thing.
Right. Everyone has their own wallet. It lives in Ticketmaster's wallet. It lives on the Polygon network, which is a little, we won't get into that. But I know physically, I went to those 3 Jet games this year and I have an NFT ticket. And I know now I wish they did this years ago when I was at like Jeter's last game. But, I have a physical ticket.
Yeah, it's not quite the same.
Jets and
Jeter's last game.
I know.
I think hold on, let me see if Michelle's back. Oh, I thought she was back for a second. Joe Floyd says, the more you 3 talk, the more this feels like Blue Green Corp's multi-level vacation stuff. I think in the long run, much like vacation schemes, these have to have an annual top-off model to generate recurring revenue. I can't say it doesn't feel like that sometimes to me too when we're talking about this stuff.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I will say that it was not easy using an NFT as a ticket or getting an NFT. For the never-ending ticket, I mean, Joe personally had to walk me through it. First you do this and then you do that. And
yeah,
it was pretty difficult.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons we didn't do it for Texi Talk, because the idea of like creating something for testing was interesting. But, I always like to wait, not at the very beginning of the bell curve. I don't want to wait till everyone knows it and adopts it, but just somewhere where it's picking up enough steam and people get enough of an understanding of why it's valuable. It's almost like, creating all this education. But I did think it was really useful. One of the ideas that I had a year ago for Texi Talk, I was thinking with NFTs, one of the things I thought would be really interesting is if you could personalize them, because I was thinking, let's say you're going to Texi Talk, you buy your ticket. Like, it's great to get a Texi Talk logo or some kind of cool picture, but it'd be really cool to get something, from yourself. I saw Dahlia sent me this post. I want to see if I can share it. I should have prepared, me. Oh, hold on. so basically, Money 2020 did this, and it was for attendees, it was kind of cost prohibitive because, as Craig said, you have to like pay to mint every single one. However, it is not so cost. So this is what they created for Money 2020 for their speakers, and I thought it was just so great. I'm gonna scroll up a little. Catherine Frankson posted this. All of their speakers got this NFT. And I just thought this was such an interesting way of using this kind of technology separate from like VIP exclusive access.
But now we could do that for Tech
I
Talk because you don't have to mint anymore.
Right. What do you think, Michelle?
And I'm sure that speakers really find that valuable. I mean, it's a unique thing that
Yeah.
they've probably never gotten before anyone else. And yeah, I think it's good. But you know,
Oh, sorry.
Keeps
Poor
cutting out.
Michelle.
And
yeah,
Liz, I want to touch on Michelle's last comment.
Yeah.
Michelle. So with that,
yeah,
if an employee, if a company buys an NFT for an employee, it's transferable. So as long as they have an employee has a MetaMask wallet or an address, that company can basically just send an employee that ticket in it now I'm saying within milliseconds, depending on network traffic, but usually it's within milliseconds that ticket is in your wallet and will live forever. Um, and basically, you can do whatever you want with them. It depends on the network, but within a minute, you have that ticket in your wallet. I know with the way that Gary Vee did it at VCon, which was last year in Minnesota. Basically, you had to show your MetaMask. You had to show I found out through security. You had to use your Face ID if you had your phone, your thumbprint, and verify that the ticket was in your wallet to get into VCon last year. Because you could always screenshot it and say, okay, this is it. But no, you physically had to show that you actually owned that NFT.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, like, are we going to end up including NFTs in like legacy planning? Like, if I were to die one day, I want someone to have my chef kick
that'll freak out.
I already did. I did my will. Someone didn't.
Make sure it's
my codes are in all my codes Liz has. But that's something we should talk about for the future and overall. I do have to jump, but
yeah, thank you for joining us.
Well, I think we should do
Craig.
a part 2. No problem. We'll do a part 2. This can go really long, but we should chat more about this.
I mean, as usual, thank you so much. As usual,
No
it's one of those things that can just get super complicated. And that's where I rely on someone like Craig to just dig in.
I think it might be, to Michelle's point, like frequent flyer miles. You have to have a company policy. Either the company owns your frequent flyer miles if you fly on the company dime, or you own them and it's a benefit. But then is that taxable? Like an employee benefit anyway.
Yeah. Well, and sorry, you're kind of, but I think that's a good point. And it reminds me as we wrap up this episode that I did want to bring up something.
It's going to probably be more complicated, but
yeah.
I mean, another thing that I don't like.
I think we're losing. Let me know in the comments if you guys can hear her. Okay.
About it, besides the fact that it's difficult.
I don't want to talk over her if you guys can hear her. Okay. I'm going to just wait a second and see. Yeah, hotel Wi-Fi. Poor Michelle's stuck trying to get home from PCMA. I'm going to talk just because I can't hear her at all. And hopefully you guys can hear. Hopefully I'm not talking over her. Oh, every time I start talking, I hear her. Are you here, Michelle? Okay, Joe says he thinks she is gone. Yeah, okay, she's frozen. Take her off for a second as we wrap up this episode. Sorry, I didn't want to detract you guys too much. Sometimes what I hear is not necessarily what you guys are hearing. So before we wrap up this episode, I did want to bring up something that I read, and I saw John Chen was on earlier. I don't know if he's still on, but he posted yesterday something that I thought was really interesting about our conversation. Last week, we were talking about Chat GPT. We're talking, I guess, in 2023 about all of these like very new things that are changing super rapidly. And last week, we were showing you how you could kind of like type in anything and get all these crazy answers. And he brought up the point, or actually, he was sharing what someone else brought up about basically Chat GPT being used in comparison to like search engines like Google and Microsoft, and they're starting to adopt some of this AI generated content searching. But one of the very interesting things that they brought up, which we did not have time to discuss last week, was around really knowing where this information comes from. So if you look at like last week's episode, or you've tried Chat GPT yourself, you know that when you go in and you type like, tell me the top, one of the things I did last week was tell me the top event people in the industry. Well, it came back with a list, and I definitely recognized many of the names, but like, how do they come up with that list? Where does that come from? And obviously that's a very simple example, but as people are using this for much more complex things, we have to worry about attributing sources and understanding how all this works. He posted something from David Snelling, who basically was saying that search engines are allowed to exist because of a law that was originally for phone books and decided by the Supreme Court in favor of Roberta Feist, his first employer in Wichita. It allows for a snippet of information to be shown in a directory that drives them to the original business. When we do question and answering instead, like we're doing with ChatGPT, and we don't attribute the source or sources or drive people to the original source, then there's all these legalities of crawling this information, and it gets super ugly. And I thought that was very important to share because I think just like the conversation we were having today with NFTs, this is, as I mentioned, like very beginning, I think, of the bell curve of people kind of getting up on that list, getting, up to speed and understanding like, what is this all about? And there's just so much that is changing and is going to change. And so these are things that we're talking about. They're super complex things and super early. So we'll try to bring you updates as we come up with them, as the world comes up with them, and as we hear about them. So sorry for the technical issues, but I was so glad Michelle was able to join, and Craig saved me a little bit in terms of understanding what all of this is. And thank you to Michelle and Sean and Peggy and Joe and everyone who was participating, all of our amazing geniuses as always. So we will be back next Thursday with another episode. Just as a reminder, this is our new time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So please do join us. And until then, we will see you next week. Have a great week, everyone.